Hey you, yeah you. I see you watching this video, sitting in your chair watching this. I just want to say something before I start. Everything that I say in this video is my opinion, so this is just what I think, and it's not like that means very much because I am an idiot after all. With that said, also my voice sounds weird in this video. It's because I'm getting over a cold. I don't even think I need to explain myself for this one. You could probably tell what this is right in front of you. Tier lists, you know them. You've heard of them. It's not a terribly original idea, but I just got done with a huge Mario retrospective on my YouTube channel, so I saw no better way to finish it off than by doing this. As you can clearly see, we got all the games. I'm just going to be ranking them, basically, based on my opinion. Now, again, you don't have to agree with everything I say, because this is just my opinion. You know what they say, they're like assholes, everybody has. So with that said, starting with none other than the original Super Mario Brothers, I'd say this game is a pretty solid start to the series. Of course, it's from 1985, so it's gonna have some, it's not gonna be perfect these days, cause, control is not the best. These stages are pretty simple by today's standards. They're basically just straight lines with jumps and enemies on them, not much else going on. But, it's still fun for what it is, and, the music, well, as overplayed as it is, it's iconic for a reason. And well, like the visuals and stuff and structure and all that, they're really rudimentary and simple. I'd still say I like it. It's a decent start for the series. I'd say it's firmly in the C tier. It's not gonna blow you away or anything, but it's good. It's solid for what it is. And the only reason why it's in the quote unquote okay tier is because everything, as you'll see, a lot of the future games just improve on it and just expand the formula so much that it just kind of renders it a little obsolete. But that didn't happen right away, because there was this game that came first, Lost Levels. Yeah, if you remember back to my video on this one, didn't like it very much, and I still don't. It just sucks. It's not challenging, it's just annoying. It's just dog shit, and really it just comes down to the stages for me. Even as a game that was technically marketed as for super players, it's just not a fun game to play. It's just really bad, in my opinion. So that goes firmly in the F tier. Dog shit. This was honestly just a really confused period for the Mario series, because it seemed like they had trouble making like a sequel to their original hit from 1985. And controversially, I would say that does continue on into their next one, which Super Mario Brothers 2, as it was called here in North America. If you're from Japan, you might recognize this game as Doki Doki Panic. That's just, everybody knows that Super Mario Brothers 2 is a reskin. Basically an official ROM hack. Yeah, this is a pretty beloved game. But honestly, after I played it for the retrospective and thought about it, I just came to the conclusion that I don't really like it all that much, to be honest. Like, it's way better designed than Lost Levels, and in some ways even outshines the original in terms of how it's designed, but it's just the controls aren't very good, if you ask me. Like, it feels like you're on ice the whole game, and the limited continues are just a pain in the ass. Same for some of the enemy placement's really dumb. I could totally understand why somebody would like this game, because it's the ideas that it has, like with the picking up and throwing things, that's really cool. There's a good game, buried in here somewhere, but I don't know, it's just the execution just kind of makes it fall flat for me. So Super Mario Brothers 2 goes in the E tier for me. Of course, there's going to be people who disagree with me with it, which is totally fine. This is just what I think, personally. Okay, we got a little bit negative there. I think we should move on to something a little bit more positive, shall we say. Super Mario Brothers 3. I think this game is where the series really became an icon. Like, it became, or truly reached greatness. Really, the only complaint that I can think of with the original version, at least, is there's actually only a couple. Is that the levels are really short and don't really have any checkpoints in them, and there's no way to save the game in the original. But that doesn't really matter to me, because it's just a really well done video game on the whole. Everything from like the iconic music, the new map screen, and they have, the power-up inventory. Those are really good ideas. Same thing for the Toad houses. It's way more forgiving with the extra lives, which just makes it more fun for me. The controls are seeing a huge improvement. They're the best they've been in the series yet, at least of the games I've talked about in this video. so far. The graphics are the best of the NES Marios. They've really got a hang of the system, and with the that special graphics chip they have that adds like the split scrolling and the diagonal scrolling. So yeah, those were good additions, which make the game stand out visually. All the stage ideas are really they're challenging but fair. They have a fair progression in difficulty. It goes very smooth curve. It's not always the most graceful because World 7 is a little bit, I think that's harder than World 8, but besides that, it's really smooth. It's a really smooth ride the whole way through. It's despite coming out all the way back in 1988, it still feels like it's aged really well. So yeah, Mario 3 I would say definitely belongs in the A tier, but it's not my favorite 2D Mario game. So you might be asking, what the hell? What is your favorite one then? It's right here. So basically what Mario World is for me is just Mario 3, but even better by a little bit. It's got basically the same strengths, but the graphics are of course more colorful and all that because of the new hardware. I personally think the control and physics are a little bit smoother, and the longer levels with the checkpoints is nice too, and it has a save feature also. So basically all those little nitpicks I had with Mario 3 have been addressed. And of course the secret exit system's really cool. It was really fun going after that and getting all 96 exits. I don't really know what else to say. Mario World and Mario 3 are really close for me, but personally Mario World just wins out by that little bit, tiny bit more. I could totally see how someone could prefer either game though. But yeah, Mario World, I mean, sorry, goes in the A tier alongside Mario 3 for me. So yeah, Mario World, A tier game for me, and that's really all there is to that. Super Mario All-Stars, which I don't really have much to say about this because it's basically just re-releases of these 4 NES games right here. Mario 1, 2, Lost Levels, which was actually the first Lost Levels release in the West, and Mario 3. Now you may think, well, half the collection is games he said he doesn't like. Must suck, right? Well, guess what? The versions of Mario 1 and 3 are good enough for me to say, yeah, this is a pretty damn good collection. And even though I still don't like the other 2 games, I mean, the work they've done is admirable to bring them to the new hardware. Except for the music in Mario 2, that's a downgrade. I mean, American Mario 2, like Doki Doki Panic 1. And I'd say this is the definitive version of Super Mario Bros. 1, minus that weird brick physics quirk where you get kind of stuck in midair for a split second, which I used to really take issue with, but after playing it more than once on this version, I just realized for me it doesn't affect it all that much. But yeah, Super Mario All-Stars I'd say belongs in the A tier. It's definitely how you would do a video game remake collection. And of course, really quick, this may seem like cheating to some people, but I don't care. I want to include this. All-Stars plus World is the definitive 2D Mario package, because it contains the All-Stars versions of those first 4 games, which were already great, and Super Mario World, of course. So that's 5 games for the price of 1. And of course it has got Mario 3 and Mario World right there. Two of the greatest side-scrollers ever made. So there's no other place this can go besides firmly in the S tier. I'd say it deserves it. This is my video, I can do what I want, shut up. It's a joke, please don't, please. Super Mario Land, the first handheld Mario game released for the Game Boy in 1989, and believe it or not, it actually sold more than Mario 3. Yeah, I'm not joking, it actually sold more, which is crazy to believe, but it's true. This one's solid, but I don't know, it hasn't aged the best. It's really, my big thing is that the controls are really weird. They're not impossible to get used to, but I don't really care for how Mario handles all that much. He just feels really oversensitive and really heavy. And there's also limited continues, but the game is pretty short, so it's not like Mario 2 where the game is relatively lengthy. I mean, as lengthy as an NES game can be. It's only 12 levels long, and you can beat it in like 40 minutes. I've done that before. It's really short. So yeah, but while it can be a little bit frustrating, but I'd say it's also mostly fun enough to say that it belongs in the C tier. So it's not great, it's also not that bad either. It's fine. I come back to it every now and then. But you know what isn't C tier? Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins, baby. Now this is how you do a handheld Mario game. It feels legitimately good enough to be like it could have come out on consoles. Only thing is it's really short, but it's the epitome of a short but sweet game. It's like the length doesn't really matter to me as much as it does that it's really fun. And Super Mario Land 2 is really good. It's got like pretty impressive graphics for the console of release. The music is a complete bop. It controls about as well as Mario 3 and World, because it actually uses the Mario 3 engine, so that makes it a lot of sense actually. The power-ups, like that bunny ears power-up, it kicks ass, and it's got the actual fire flower rather than that weird power ball thing from Mario Land 1. I like the idea of being able to choose which worlds you do with the order of the worlds, and it's really funny that they're called zones, like it's a Sonic game or something. I find that pretty funny. I just think it's all around really good. It's really hard to find things to complain about because it's just a really good game. I don't know what else to say. I'd say it belongs in the A tier alongside the other 2D Mario triumphs. Okay, and we have reached the late 90s, which is when the 3D stuff started. Starting with none other than the iconic Super Mario 64 for the Nintendo 64. Where to begin, honestly? This game is the definition of the word classic, if you ask me. Now, please, I urge you not to write off my opinion because I will admit I grew up with it on the Wii Virtual Console. But still, to this day, I think it's really good. I think Mario controls extremely well. Like, I see some people complaining about that, and I just roll my eyes and think, what the hell are you talking about? I'm joking, of course, but personally I think it handles extremely well to this very day. I think it's really fun to mess around with Mario's movements and everything. I mean, it's the reason why the game has this huge speedrunning community. And of course there's the collectathon gameplay introduced, which I've always really liked. I think it's the coolest way to do a 3D game, or at least it's my favorite way of doing it, because of the whole speedrunning appeal that it has. I always think it's of trying to get 100% as quickly as you can. I think that's really cool and fun to do. The music is great, especially the wing cap power-up theme. The graphics have aged a little bit, but I don't know, I don't think it's puke ugly, but it's definitely, you can tell it's from 1996. Yeah, so, I still think Super Mario 64 is one of the best Mario games ever made. I come back to it quite frequently. Some people might place it differently, but I'd say it goes straight in the S tier. It's one of my, 2 favorite Mario games, specifically my 2nd favorite. So what's my favorite then? Well, if you know me, you probably already know where this is going, but it's right here, by none other than the GameCube classic from 2002, Super Mario Sunshine. Yep, it's my favorite Mario game. I'm not even kidding. Allow me to explain myself. It's basically what Mario World did to Mario 3, or did in relation to Mario 3, where it's basically just took a lot of its ideas and refined them. Same thing, Sunshine takes a lot of what Mario 64 did so well and improves it, if you ask me, while also adding its own new spin on things. Now, what do I mean by that? I thought Mario 64 controlled really well already. Sunshine's even better. Yes, I did just say that. I think this is the best control in the 3D Mario series, to be honest. Just like the physics are perfect and really smooth. And, of course, can't mention Sunshine without talking about the moveset. I could go on for hours about that. It's like Mario 64, it's just so much fun to mess around with and get through the game really fast. Especially the spin jump. The spin jump kicks ass. It's just really satisfying. And when chained with Flood, which is that new spin on the gameplay that I mentioned, you can just create some of the coolest movement in the Mario series. Just with the hover nozzle, it lets you hover a little bit of a distance in midair, and it's a really powerful tool that just opens the game up. And I also love the visuals and the Beach Island theming. This game is probably the reason I love that aesthetic so much. I don't care if it's all set in one theme the whole game. They expand on it and they get creative with it, and I think it's great. It's just, they make Isle Delfino feel like a living, breathing place. Not a lot of Mario games try to do that, but I really wish they did, because it's really cool how they did that. The music's also pretty underrated. Probably not as good as some of these other games. Still pretty damn good, though. And I like the blue coins, okay? Sue me.
Don't actually sue me, please. It was a joke. I can't afford a lawsuit.
And honestly, I think the story is a really fun change of pace from how Mario usually is, even if it's still kind of just the princess getting kidnapped. Just like the voice acting and everything is really fun. Probably not my preferred way of Mario storytelling, but it's a fun change of pace for what it is. But yeah, Sunshine gets the honor of going in the S tier, of course. And it goes right at the top. So yeah, I absolutely love Mario Sunshine. Feel free to disagree, but that's what I think, personally. So, now on to a game that I don't love. Super Mario Advance. It's basically just Super Mario Brothers 2, but on the GBA. It's a little bit better. It's because it has a save feature, and it's got better graphics. Still not as good as the SNES version's graphics, but you know, they're still better than the originals. The music is really good. I think it's the definitive version of the soundtrack of this game. That's it. That's all. I think the controls are even worse than the original. I don't know what happened, but yeah, it's just, I think the game still sucks. It goes in the E tier. It's a little better than the original just because the improvements it does make. Because also, I forgot to mention, the health system is improved too. But it's still that same game that I don't care for, as improved as it may be. So I'd say it still goes in the E tier. But thankfully the GBA remakes of these games weren't completely doomed, because right after this, and then the year after, we got Super Mario World remade on Game Boy Advance as Super Mario Advance 2. I'd say this is a pretty well done port overall. I personally prefer the original because the graphics and sound are better. And that may seem like a silly reason to prefer that, because this version, the GBA version, does make improvements. Like the save feature is better, but the two are so similar to me that I think preferring it for this, for like aesthetic reasons, is fair. They're basically interchangeable to me. They feel the exact same to play. They're right about even. It's just that the better graphics and better sounding music, in my opinion, push the original up just a little bit. But I'd still say this goes in B tier. If you got no other option to play, you just want to play Super Mario World on the go, this isn't a bad option. And Super Mario Advance 4, the remake of Mario 3, I kind of just feel the same way about it. It's basically just Mario 3, and it does add a save feature, but again, it's just so neck and neck with the original and the All-Stars version that I think it's fair to prefer those for the better aesthetics. Except for the graphics. The graphics are in the GBA version are better than the NES original, just because they're more colorful, but I still say the music wins out on the original because it's more energetic. So this goes right in the B tier. The Advanced series, these two anyway, were pretty solid remakes, but I'm probably just going to play the originals. Alright, and we have reached a game that I actually didn't do a video on in full. I did mention it though in the Galaxy review. It's kind of a joke. Super Mario 64 DS. This is a remake I've kind of gone back and forth on over the years, from really loving it as a kid to feeling disappointed because I found out it wasn't the original and I really wanted to play the original because I was a picky ass kid, to one fateful day in I think 2018 or so where I came back to it, and admittedly kind of in bad faith after being tired of hearing praise for it over the original, just played it and hated on it and got really mad about it, and then I came back to it and thought to myself, yeah, that was a little ridiculous. To now, after I played it again, and I don't know, I don't really like it all that much. It's not a horrible remake. It has some really cool ideas, like the extra content, and the models are better than the original. The extra characters are cool. It's all around, it's a really solid port for in that sense, but what really holds it back is, you guessed it, the controls. I mean, it was on a console with a D-pad, which makes me think they didn't really make this because they felt that Mario 64 needed a remake, more so that they thought they could sell some more DSs by saying, ooh, check this out, I can run this 3D game. Look at how impressive that is. And yeah, it is impressive that the DS can run this, but I don't know, it just hasn't aged very well. It's a D tier, which is a real shame, because this could have been the definitive version. Like, by all rights, it should have been, but it's just those controls, man. That's what lets it down for me. What isn't a letdown, though, Super Mario Galaxy. It's just all around a good game, honestly. I have gone on record saying it's not my absolute favorite, but even I, as someone who, I'll admit to having picked on it a little bit in the past, because of me and my immature mindset was annoyed with the hype around it, compared to Sunshine and 64, which I felt were unfairly hated on by people who like these games. But I've grown up. I'd like to think I've grown up since then, and I've come to realize that was just ridiculous. While I have some more problems with the Galaxy games than some people do, even I have to admit they're really well-made games and are really fun to play. The only thing is just the 3D Mario games were built all on like 100% up to this point, And I think the Galaxy games kind of dropped the ball in that regard. And they have some dated motion control segments that just aren't really fun these days. When these games get it right, they really get it right. Yeah, it's all around just, the game's beautiful, it controls well enough. It's got that cool spin move and all that. It's the gravity, of course. Really, I can't really add much else beyond just the criticisms that I might have that a lot of people don't. But beyond that, Mario Galaxy is great. I'd say it belongs in the A tier. Definitely one of the Mario series finer works. But Galaxy 2, I'd say, is even better than the first. Yeah, it is basically just the same game, just with different stages and everything. But I think the thing that pushes us over the edge is that the ideas, it's basically just takes Galaxy 1, but it takes its ideas to the extreme, pretty much. Yeah, the story is kind of this lazy retreaded that has less interesting presentation, but it's really the gameplay here that kind of elevates it. Now, some of the new ideas aren't the greatest. They can be mildly frustrating now and then. But to be fair, the original could kind of be like that occasionally. But it's not enough to really affect the game. It's still really it's still Mario. It's still really fun throughout. So yeah, I'd say it goes right in the A tier next to Galaxy 1. It's just all around really good. I'm sorry if it feels like I'm repeating myself, but what more can you really say? It's just Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. I mean, they've been just go to any other person's video, or wink wink, nudge nudge,
My videos on this topic.
if you want to hear that in more detail. Alright, so here's the infamous part. The new Super Mario Bros. Series, starting with the DS original from 2006. Now, it's easy to forget that when this originally came out, it was a relatively novel concept. Basically an all-new game in the style of the old one, but with like updated visuals and all that. But really, the better way to summarize it would just be a new game that uses old ideas in a 2D format. And while it's kind of dry nowadays because of the what would happen later on, I'd still say the first new Super Mario Bros. Is probably my favorite overall, just because it feels the most distinct. It's got some unique music tracks that don't get recycled at all. A lot of the future ones would recycle the ones from the next game in this sub-series. And there's really not much more to say about New Super Mario Bros. It's just a Mario game that's just fun. I don't even know what else to add about it. Here's a fucking list of tax receipts. I'd say this goes in the B tier, just because it controls better than the original, and its stages are a little bit more, they're more interesting, basically. As blasphemous as that might sound to some, just because of what this sub-series would become. Oh yeah, I rhymed it. But anyway, next up, New Super Mario Bros. Wii. I don't really have much to say about this. It's just like New Super Mario Bros. 1, I grew up with it. It was actually my first Mario game, believe it or not. I have fond memories of it all, and it's still decent these days, but it doesn't really stand out because it's literally just New Super Mario Bros. But on the DS. Or on the Wii. Sorry, my bad. It is that cool helicopter power-up, but that's about really it. It just kind of feels like the same game, but on the Wii. And running at a higher resolution, of course, because, you know, it takes advantage of that. But, yeah, I'd say it goes squarely in the B tier, alongside the original. They're pretty interchangeable to me. What isn't interchangeable, though, is New Super Mario Bros. 2, which is probably one of the most lazy and corporate-feeling games that I've ever played in my life. I don't like to describe games as that a lot, because it sounds pretentious and stupid, but this game kind of just fits that criteria for me. It feels really lazy and not like they made it because they wanted to make a new game. It's just felt like, we need a Mario game on the 3DS, and we need it right fucking now. Which is weird, because the 3DS already got a Mario game at that point, which,
We'll talk about that in a minute.
yeah, this game is just such a nothing burger to me. It's just, I barely even remember it, and what I do remember about it and I just played it this summer too, so it wasn't that long ago, and yet the only thing I really remember is just the annoying parts. Like, anything that was okay it's been done to death in other Mario games, so anything that this game does that's new is just something really boring or something really stupid, in my opinion at least. I think it's better, it's more competent than these three, but it still goes right in the D camp, next to Mario 64 DS. But make no mistake, this gap between these is way larger than it looks in my mind. Don't take that out of context. So yeah, that's I don't really care for NSMB2 all that much. It's the most boring game in the series probably. But hey, at least New Super Mario Bros. U is more memorable. Still feels like a New Super Mario Bros. Game though. Not really that standout. It's in HD. That's cool. The world map is pretty neat. How it's all interconnected and everything. That's about all I got for this one, to be honest. I'd say it's C tier. It's totally inoffensive, but in being inoffensive, it's not very memorable. Now, New Super Luigi U, the expansion pack, though, that is more memorable because it's basically just New Super Mario Bros. U, but with new stages. It's just a level pack, and these stages are way harder. They're like Mario 3 length. They pack a punch, relatively speaking, and I'd say it works out for the most part. There's some moments that were irritating, but overall, this is, you know, by and large, I prefer this to the original because it's more interesting to play. I'd say it belongs in the B tier. I'd probably play these two over it just because they have more meat on their bones, and possibly because of the nostalgia. That's probably the main underlying reason, because I have more fond memories with these two games. Now, a game I have no fond memories with. Please don't kill me for this. Super Mario 3D Land. Yeah, this one's a doozy. This is probably one of my biggest hot takes because a lot of people really like this game. I'm not one of those people. In fact, I think it sucks. There, I said it. It's mainly just because I don't like how it controls at all. It's just, they feel like they simplified the controls from the other 3D Mario games, which had analog movement and everything. Correct me if I'm wrong, the 3DS's circle pad, like at the very least, you probably didn't need a run button. Because if you can't have full 360 movement, the least you could do is have, like, run button controls. But no, apparently they thought it was too complicated or something. I don't know.
And not to mention, the physics themselves are also really bad. They're really stiff and just really clunky, and it's just bad, and they suck.
And a lot of the stage design is just, it's not terrible, but it's really boring by the series standards. And a lot of it just involves a bunch of waiting, auto-scrollers and everything. It's really bland. There's no ledge grab move, which that could have come in handy and more than once. I mean, the music is pretty damn good. The visuals are fine for 3DS. Oh, and of course, I can't forget that stupid progression roadblock they have with the star coins, which they don't tell you about until the 5th world. Like, the least they could have done is make the first world castle, the World 1 castle, have to be unlocked with the star coins, because then it would tell you, okay, I have to collect these things to progress. But no, they wait until the 5th world and suddenly force it down your throat, because on my first playthrough, I distinctly remember being really short and having to go back and then just collect a bunch of them to continue. And the act of collecting them isn't even fun. If you ask me, collectathon elements do not belong in linear games like this. I mean, if it's optional, that's okay. That's a fine thing. That's a fine concept. But mandatory? This is not the place for that. So I thought, I came into it for my review with an open mind, thinking, okay, maybe it's not as bad as I remember. But I just came out disappointed with this game again. I'm sorry, but this has to go down the E tier for me. I think it's just fair to say, for me, it's the worst 3D Mario game by a landslide. But hey, at least 3D World is actually not that bad. It's actually pretty good. It's basically just everything 3D Land should have been. It actually controls decently. They tell you about the green stars blocking your progress in the first world. Still don't like that it's required to progress, but I mean, hey, at least they tell you about it early on, so you know what to do. The game's a little dry though. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a new Super Mario Bros. Game in 3D like I've heard some people describe it as, but it's just, personally for me, I prefer the more open 3D Mario stuff, because the whole point of the 3D is that you can bring the series to new heights, not necessarily recreate the exact same gameplay but in a new dimension. That's just really boring to me. But for what it's worth, Mario 3D World is fun. I'd definitely say it's more fun than the new Super Mario Bros. Games, just because the third dimension does make it more interesting than them. Let's see, I'd say B is a pretty fair spot for it, right sandwiched in between it and Advance 4. So yeah, a lot of people got disappointed that that was the only 3D Mario game on the Wii U. A couple years down the line, you know, a lot of people were itching for the return to the collectathon stuff, and good news, it happened in 2017. Super Mario Odyssey, which I think is pretty damn good. Now, it's not my favorite 3D Mario. I'd say it's out of the 3 Collectathon Marios we've looked at so far. Probably my least favorite of those 3, of 64, Sunshine, and it. But objectively, it's probably the overall best one, just all things considered. But for me personally, I think the other 2 are I just enjoy them a little bit more. And it all comes down to collectible count, because like I said, for me personally, a lot of the appeal of 3D Mario is fully completing them as quickly as you can, with creative use of your moveset, and Odyssey doesn't really incentivize that because it has like 1,000 collectibles in it. While it doesn't kick you out of the stage, which is a very welcome improvement, hopefully every single 3D Mario game that focuses on collecting things carries that over no matter what from now on, at least open-ended collectathon-based ones. Odyssey just kind of feels like a game that was meant to be picked up in a car ride as you collect a bunch of moons, rather than like sat at home and over the course of however many play sessions you fully completed, which is not a design philosophy I prefer for 3D Mario, but the game is really good. I can't deny that. I think it's really fun. The controls are super smooth, probably the best controls since Sunshine. The capping mechanic is really well done. It's a great idea for the series, and it's implemented and executed very well, where you get to control enemies and all sorts of stuff, and it's just really, really fun to play around with. Adds a new dimension to everything. And the kingdoms, their visuals are great, especially the Metro Kingdom, which is it's really cool to see Mario in that setting. What else to say? The music's really damn good. I don't know, I'm not very good at unscripted content, to be honest, but basically, point is, Super Mario Odyssey, I think it's really good. Definitely, it's more to my taste for 3D Mario, so I probably say I prefer it over both Galaxies, even if those games technically have more replay value, albeit not as much replay value as these 2. Yeah, while I probably won't be replaying it as much as the 2 big boys, it's definitely a game I'll return to from time to time. Same thing for the Galaxy duo, so yeah, I would say Odyssey belongs in the A tier. Alright, so what's next? What's next? Oh, yeah, so, this thing, I'm just gonna go ahead and rank it right away, because I made a promise to not go into a whole lot of detail about this one anymore. Super Mario 3D All-Stars, I'd say it's a D tier, below New Super Mario Bros. 2, because I think it's a really mediocre collection. These 2 right here, there's the embodiment of the mediocre. So, while it's technically functional, outside of the crappy control downgrades that they have, it's just a really, really lazy collection that, they sold for $60, because you have to remember, it was full price for this, when something like the Kirby collection, which I haven't played personally, but have seen and heard great things about, was only $40. Now, yeah, I get it, Sunshine and Galaxy haven't been re-released before, but I don't know, for a collection of these games, I was expecting a little more than just them lazily slapped together, like concept art, at least something they could have had beyond just a music player. That's all I'm gonna say on this from now on. I'm probably not gonna bring it up much anymore, because I don't really care about it anymore. But yeah, it's a mediocre collection, and that's really all I have to say about it. Which brings me to the final game on this list, Bowser's Fury, which, like New Super Luigi U, is an expansion, but this time for 3D World. And it's basically, it's kind of weird. Like, it's this weird hybrid between 3D World linear design in some areas, but placed on islands in like an open world kind of place with collectathon elements. It's really strange, but I think it works. Now, albeit it's probably the weakest of the collectathon Marios overall, but it's a little bit more concise than Odyssey, which would probably make it a little bit more replayable for me in the future. I'm not really sure. I do know that I enjoyed it quite a bit, though. As my video went into, I think it's really good. And it's really intriguing. It could be, like I said there, that if they just clean up a couple things every now and then, like the weird having to leave islands and come back to get some of the objectives, then this could be a real winning formula for the 3D series of Mario. And also, I really like how the whole Bowser's Fury mechanic that it's named after. It's a cool idea, and it's really neat to have like the Godzilla-inspired Bowser design like that. And he doesn't kidnap Peach at all in the game, so that's really cool. They finally did it after this long. So yeah, it's not a mind-blowing experience, but for what it was, I enjoyed it. It's really all you can hope for every now and then, really, you know. I'd say it belongs in the B tier. Right at the top of the B tier, actually. And so, yeah, that's that. Alright, and that is it. That's my Mario tier list. Again, this is just my opinion, so if you disagree, And if you want to, you can feel free to make your own list. You think some of these games should go lower, or if some of them should go higher up, or switch them around in these tiers. So yeah, that's the true ending of the retrospective right there. And if you're wondering how all these games, if you watched it, first of all, thank you. Can't believe you chose me over other people to listen to my big mouth for hours on end. But yeah, if you were ever wondering how all these would rank together, this, as of right now at least, after playing them all again for this video series, this is how I would rank them. And yeah, that's about it. But I'm not quite done with Mario yet, because again, if a new game comes out, I'll try to get my hands on it and review it. I won't update the tier list though, but that remains to be seen. But what I will for sure be doing, at some point, I want to take all the videos in this series and compile them into a huge supercut. It's gonna be huge, probably around like 8 hours long, if I had to guess. Especially since I want to do over some of the earlier segments to make them, basically just to update them and make them way better. Because even going on 2 years later, they're already starting to show their age. In the background, I've secretly already done the Sunshine part, but I might end up doing it for all the early segments, like the pre-Advanced 1 segments. I'd rather do other stuff now, so that's a project for another day. But mark my words, I will do it one day. Just probably not now, because it's gonna take a lot to do that. It's gonna be a huge undertaking. Maybe around this summer I'll do it, because it's also gonna need me to re-edit edit down a few of the other later segments to make them fit together. And it would just be a lot of work. So maybe I'll do it over the summer of next year, 2023. Yeah, that really does it for me. If you want to see some more stuff, be sure to stick around, because I've got some pretty hefty plans for next year. Got some stuff that's been cooking up for a while that I can finally do now that because I just wanted to finish this retrospective off before starting any new big projects. But yeah, that really does it. Thank you for watching this. Merry belated Christmas. It's been a few days since then. Happy New Year, and I will see you all later.
Are you fucking serious right now? What did I tell you about sticking around this long after the video? Just get lost, there's nothing here. Alright, that's it, I'm going to